Mad Wolf here, and today I kind of wanted to talk about something. It's another thing that irks me. A lot of things have been irking me this year, and there's a lot of things I kind of wanted to talk about, but this one I thought was interesting. And it was something I saw on Twitter. This was months ago. I'm not even on Twitter anymore. I've been debating going back, but last time I was on, it was just a whole bunch of political crap, and I want nothing to do with politics. But anyway, so it was a long time ago, at least 6 months, and someone was trying to tell me that the original Xbox was basically the new Sega Genesis, and I really disagree. I really do disagree with this. So my reasons why: first of all, I'm going to say, if you guys like Microsoft, Windows, or Windows Phone, the Kinect, Xbox, hey, awesome, that's your thing. You are entitled to your likes, and etc., blah blah blah. But I grew up with the Sega Genesis. It's ironic that growing up with the Sega Genesis, I actually wanted a Super Nintendo, because in the 90s, Nintendo, I shouldn't say they were cool, because Sega was cooler. The Mortal Kombat games were uncensored and stuff like that, but maybe it was just the grass is always greener. I wanted a Nintendo. We had the original NES, but not the Super Nintendo, and I'm like, it's super! And then Nintendo 64 came out, and I wanted a Nintendo 64, which I eventually got both of them. I was like 12 and 13. Super Nintendo I had to buy for myself. But in the long run, I'm like, yeah, as an adult, I think the Genesis actually was cooler. Even as a kid, I think the Genesis games are cooler than the Super Nintendo games. Super Nintendo has good games too. But I do think the NES was better than the Super Nintendo, in my opinion, just with games and stuff like that. But, talking about Xbox, and the comparison of Xbox is Sega. And I could see some similarities, especially with the controller, because the controller is pretty much the Dreamcast controller, minus the little window. You could see the cool VMU cards, which is ironic. The Dreamcast memory cards were really cool. I think you could play even like little Digimon games on them or something like that. But the Xbox memory cards, I don't know anybody who actually had those. I don't know the practicality of them, other than maybe to transfer save files to a friend's Xbox. Maybe for like Tony Hawk Pro Skater, something like that, where you create characters, create parks, create levels, that sort of thing. But I don't really know anybody who had an Xbox memory card. And it was a weird function. They had a slot in the controllers for 2 memory cards. And what's the point? You have a hard drive built into the Xbox, which is one of the coolest things about the original Xbox. The music, being able to store music on your Xbox, was actually really cool. And I will say that really separated it from the PS2. But that's where I'm like, controller aside, there's really no similarities. And it's very weird to compare Microsoft to Sega, because when I think of Microsoft, I think of Windows. I think of, Windows Phone. I think of, the whole I'm a PC, I'm a Mac commercials, if you remember those.
Hello, I'm a Mac.
And I'm a PC.
Whoa, what happened to you, PC?
Kids happened. I was bought for a home. Now I have to make movies and blogs and listen to music every night. I'm crying myself to sleep mode.
I'm sorry about that.
You were made to stimulate 10-year-old brains with your iLife jazz. All I want to do is balance their checkbooks.
I don't think 10-year-olds have checkbooks.
No checkbooks, no inboxes, no employers, just wild imaginations. I have to go listen to some emo.
And I think that's what Microsoft really focuses on, is business, making money. And every business needs money to survive, and it's the lifeblood of business and the economy and everything like that. But at the same time, the games for Xbox, which iconic Xbox titles, Halo, Fable, You know, I'm just going to use those. Those are probably the two biggest ones for the original Xbox. They're not made by Microsoft. They're made by Bungie and I think Lionhead Studios. And I'm not going to say both games are great because I never really could get into Halo. I do have Halo. I could play it every now and again, but it's not my cup of tea. Probably going to start a flame war or something, but I do like Halo 4 over 1. Even when I got the Xbox 360 for free and came with Halo 3, I'm like, I have no clue what the hell is even going on in this story. I beat Halo 1, so I understand certain things. Excuse me for burping, by the way. But I'm just like, this is just it's a weird story in my opinion. And then playing Halo 4, I'm like, oh, okay, so that's what makes Master Chief pretty cool, and he's 7 feet tall. Because playing the original Halo, I never got that vibe. I never got the vibe he was a super soldier, he dies way too easy, blah blah blah, yada yada yada. But I mean, people love Halo, and that's cool. They're entitled to love Halo, you know. I mean, when it comes to sci-fi shooters, I'm sorry, I like the original Doom over Halo. I like Quake and Quake 2 way over Halo. Even as far as multiplayer shooters go, I like Unreal and Unreal Tournament way better than Halo. And actually, Halo, the original Unreal, was a sci-fi adventure. And really cool story. You crash land on a planet, you're a prisoner, and you gotta survive and get the hell out of this hostile alien planet. Old school 90s gaming, you know. Very simple story, gives you a simple objective. But no, I really liked Fable. Fable was really awesome on the Xbox. But unfortunately, I would say those were the flagship Xbox games. Other games that came out for the original Xbox, MechAssault. I did really enjoy MechAssault, but I don't think that was Microsoft Game Studios. I might be wrong, but yeah, I really enjoyed MechAssault. MechAssault was really cool. Ironic that it's not backwards compatible on the 360, or at least it's not on the backwards compatibility list. MechAssault 2 is, but I don't know. I don't enjoy it as much. Other games that came out, I remember some of these games that were advertised was Star Wars Obi-Wan, which I've seen people play it, and I'm like, this game is ugly. I'd rather play Episode 1 on the original PlayStation. And that was an exclusive. And I do like the Tony Hawk games, but they had one, I think, called Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2X, and I think it was basically Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2. I've never played it. I wanted to, but yeah, those were the Xbox games. And I mean, Xbox also has all the third-party games, you know, you could get on all systems. But comparing it to Sega Genesis, and comparing the company to Sega, you know, when I think of Sega, I think of arcade games. I think of Virtua Fighter. I think of Hang On. I think of Outrun. I think of Altered Beast. I think of just so many different titles. And some of them are third-party. Vector Man, I think, is a third-party game, but it's a Sega Genesis exclusive. And it really, when you play it, it looked like you could just be like, that is a Sega game. Road Rash is another good example where it's Electronic Arts, but when you see it, you're just like, that's a Sega game. Oh, that's another Xbox game, was Project Gotham Racing, which I think has something to do with the people who did something for the Sega Dreamcast. I forget what the hell it's called, but it just, for me, I looked at it, I'm like, this looks just like a generic kind of Need for Speed kind of game. And Bloodwake was another one I saw a lot of advertisements for, and I'm like, so you're a boat with machine guns, okay. I don't know, I just feel like Xbox, they didn't do enough to grab your attention. And Toe Jam and Earl was another classic Sega game. That one did come out for the Xbox, and it's ironic that one's also not compatible with the Xbox 360. But you know, then you got Sonic the Hedgehog, and in the early 2000s, I think a lot of people born maybe late 90s, early 2000s, they get conceptualized ideas of Sega, and they're like, oh, well, Nintendo bailed Sega out. And I think one of the things that was a problem with Sega of America, was I think the president was probably, I have no facts to back this up, but he wound up working for Microsoft. And once again, the controller for the Xbox, very similar to the Dreamcast. But that's the same guy who felt the fun arcade Japanese games, which is what we think of with Sega, would not work over here on the American Sega Saturn. And it's like, wait, what? And his reason was because it's two-dimensional. Everyone wanted 3D in the mid-90s, which if you think about it, Duke Nukem 3D, it's technically a 2D game. It's 3D, but it has all these 2D sprites. It's very pixelated. You know, Doom has its 3D limitations. You cannot build rooms over other rooms in the classic Doom. You can make platforms, and then they rise and fall, but that's it. And then Wolfenstein 3D, which, you know, that was my first-person shooter experience. That one was completely two-dimensional. There is no Z-axis. It was a pseudo 3D looking game, almost like Outrun. And truth be told, like, I didn't play Quake when it first came out. My first 3D first-person shooter experience, true 3D, was GoldenEye. And I'll get into that in a minute, but going back to the Sega, you know, Sega did so many cool arcades before the Genesis, and I think even before the Master System. Sega was really good with arcades, and I do think the people who work for Sega focus on making fun games, and they enjoy those games, or at least they used to in the 80s, 90s. Sega is a little different now, and I will say, you know, after decades, you know, people pass away, people leave the company for whatever reasons, maybe to join another company, etc., blah, blah, blah. But gonna go back to the GoldenEye thing. Okay, so GoldenEye was developed by Rare, same company that did Perfect Dark, and Jet Force Gemini, Killer Instinct, Donkey Kong Country, Donkey Kong 64, you know, Battletoads, frickin' not Toe Jam and Roll, Snake Rattle and Roll, which I don't know anybody who really talks about Snake Rattle and Roll. I enjoy Snake Rattle and Roll. That's an original NES game. But that was one of the first. Oh, Star Fox Adventures was Rare. I think that was one of the last titles they did for the Nintendo GameCube before being bought out by Microsoft. And I mean, Rare has a lot of talent, and it's weird when you think of that, because once again, they have a whole history of making really awesome games. And then I don't know anybody who really played Grab by the Ghoulies, and that one looks fun. It looks cute, and it looks fun and different. But the first real Rare game that I remember seeing all this advertisement for was Perfect Dark Zero. And I won't lie, seeing the trailer and the commercials for that made me want to buy an Xbox 360. Also known Quake 4 was going to be an Xbox 360 exclusive, and came with Quake 2 for free on a bonus disc. But it's weird. I decided not to get an Xbox 360 when it came out. I chose the PS3 instead. I eventually got an Xbox 360 for free. But then I heard a lot of people hating Perfect Dark Zero, saying how it has nothing like the original Perfect Dark. It's not as good. It's not as... And I'm like, I remember a lot of people liking the original Perfect Dark just because she looks good.
Welcome to 2023. Big businesses now merge with alien nations. An ancient war is being fought under the sea. The president is about to be cloned. And it's your job to try and save the world. So you've got an important decision to make. What are you going to wear to work? From the team who brought you GoldenEye or N64, meet Special Agent Joanna Dark in Perfect Dark, where you'll find out that the only person person man enough to handle a job like this is a woman. Perfect Dark. Rated M for mature.
Almost like the same Dead or Alive kind of thing. Dead or Alive was another one. I love playing Dead or Alive on PS2, and then Dead or Alive 3 and Extreme Beach Volleyball were Xbox exclusives.
Well, I only play for the fighting. I appreciate the expansive multi-tier environments and the 16 characters with the pixel shading bump mapping and the rich plot development. Seriously, why else would I play it? She kicks high. Rated T for teen.
I just remember the commercials. She kicks high. And I don't know, that's what I think about when I think about Xbox. I think they want to be edgy and they want to be associated like, hey, we're kind of like Sega. I don't feel it is like Sega at all. And because Sega was just a really solid video game system. They played video games and it's really good at playing video games. When you get an Xbox, I think they call it a multimedia player, which there's another system that's a multimedia player, not same terminology. And I will say that I do have one of these. The Panasonic 3DO. And these games try to be edgy and out Sega as well. And this system, nobody really cares about. It was expensive when it came out, and it didn't last very long. I'm surprised Microsoft has. But I do feel Microsoft, rather than focusing on just making solid games, fun games, which what Sega did, you know, games like, what the hell is it? Technically it's Die Hard Arcade here in the States, but in Japan it was Dynamite Deca, and Virtua Fighter, Streets of Rage, Golden Axe. And you could say, oh, well, those are just Double Dragon clones. Yeah, in a way you're right, but they do stand out on their own, and they're really fun to play. I mean, Golden Axe, what's really cool is you knock warriors off of their mounts, their mounted animals, and then you get to ride the animals, and you're like, I'm gonna breathe fire. And it's like, yeah, you don't do that in Double Dragon. It would have been cool in Double Dragon if you could ride a motorcycle or car or something, but Golden Axe stands out on its own. Streets of Rage is definitely a Double Dragon clone, but it still stands out on its own. The Xbox games do stand out, but they're not really done by Microsoft. Microsoft has a tendency of acquiring talent, and once again with Rare. Actually, one of my favorite Rare games for the Microsoft systems, and I can't believe I'm saying this, is Connect Sports. Connect Sports is awesome. I love playing soccer. The boxing is cool. Bowling is, I prefer Wii bowling, but yeah, I do like the Connect Sports, but the Connect is a perfect, actually bringing up the Xbox Avatar people and then comparing Wii Sports is a perfect example. I remember when the Nintendo Wii came out, and that was the system I had. Oh man, that was a terrible story right there, but I'll save that for another video another time. I remember the Wiis were super sold out, much like how the PS5s and the Xbox Sixes, whatever you want to call it. I'm surprised they dropped the Scorpio title. That sounds cool, Scorpio. Get Scorpio! But, yeah, the Wiis were really sold out. And when I finally got one, you know, everyone made a whole shit ton of Mii characters and then playing the Wii Sports. And, you know, it's just really fun. Well, then I noticed Xbox, because I had some friends that had an Xbox 360, and their menu system was completely different originally. But then one of the times I came over, their menu completely changed, and they're like, oh yeah, we have to create avatars now, and I was like, this looks like the Nintendo Mii people. That is exactly what it was. Xbox was trying to kind of compete with Nintendo. And, hey, we can be cool too. We can have the cute characters. And I'm like, can't you just let people have their own thing? Even the Kinect Sports. I mean, it's essentially Wii Sports. But years later, I think it was the Kinect came out years later. And PlayStation had the PlayStation Move, which was very much Wii controllers. But Kinect at least was trying to do something different. You need a ridiculous amount of space for it. And when that thing flopped, they just dropped it. They're not doing VR. They're not learning from their mistakes. They're not pushing the gaming forward. They just dropped it. And for me, I think that's kind of sad because I like the Kinect. I think it had potential to do some cool things if they worked out the kinks. But they didn't want to work out the kinks. So, yeah, you could tell they competed with, once again, they competed with the Nintendo Wii because they had the bootleg Mii characters. They acquired all this talent. They started with Rare. I think Team Ninja had some licensing deal with the original Xbox. It's funny, I remember even the advertisements for Splinter Cell. It's gonna push your Xbox to the limit. Yeah, it got ported to the GameCube and the PS2, so I don't believe it pushes your Xbox to the limits. Later on, they acquired Bethesda a little bit more recently. And I think that one's an interesting one because I remember it was either Bethesda or ZeniMax. I think it's Bethesda who did it. But they bought id Software. And id Software is known for Wolfenstein, Doom, Quake, less popular Rage. Rage is actually really cool. You guys should give Rage some more attention. But, yeah, I mean, Wolfenstein, Doom, and Quake. These are moneymakers. And they were big names in the 90s. If you didn't play Doom, chances are you played Wolfenstein. And if you grew up a little bit later, well, you didn't play Duke Nukem 3D, you played Quake. And, yeah, Microsoft acquired Bethesda not that long ago. That's another one I came across someone saying on Facebook is, hey, this means we're going to get quality control. And I'm just like, do you remember Windows Vista? Do you remember Windows 8? Do you remember Windows 95? Microsoft doesn't necessarily mean quality control.
Let's plug it in. It's going to say, hey, I see you've plugged in a new device, and it's going to load in the appropriate drivers. You'll notice that this scanner build, whoa. Moving right along.
That must be why we're not shipping Windows 98 yet.
Absolutely.
I think they just acquire things to get money. That's another one is, I believe it was Rise of the Tomb Raider. I don't think it was Shadow of the Tomb Raider, but I think it was the second one. I think it was Rise. It was an Xbox exclusive for like a year. And that was because of licensing deals. That's all Microsoft does is business. But yeah, back to the main topic. No, I don't even think Microsoft holds a candle to what Sega used to be in their glory days. And even now, do I like Sega games? Yeah, Sega games. Sega's got some cool stuff coming. You know, like the Judgment game. Judgment's pretty cool. Although I friggin' got stuck because I spent all the money and then I can't use a taxi to go anywhere, so I have to redo that all over again. But no, I mean, no, modern Sega's not as cool as it used to be. It's not as fun as it used to be. But they make good games still, or at least publish good games. I didn't hate Sonic Forces. I thought Sonic Forces, for the most part, was good. I wish there was more to the bosses. The final boss in Forces is pretty good. I think Sega now kind of leaves me wanting more. And they did that with Sonic 3 way back in the day. I remember beating Robotnik and I'm like, wait, that's the whole game? And then, hey, yeah, Sonic and Knuckles. That's technically Sonic 3 Part 2. But, Yeah, I really, with Microsoft's business transactions and their acquisitions, and that's a Microsoft game I like, is Forza. I like Forza Motorsport 4 on the Xbox 360, and I do like Forza Horizon 4, which I think it's 4, the one with Lego, but I have it on PC. I love Killer Instinct, but even that was the game that made me almost buy an Xbox One. But I heard a lot of people, like, I'm just like, I don't want to buy an Xbox One just for a fighting game, okay? And then people are saying, oh no, it's not even a really good fighting game because you have to buy every individual character and all this stuff. And luckily I was able to get the full complete version with Season 2 and Season 3 DLC for like $40 on PC. Because I still don't have an Xbox One. I don't want an Xbox One. I have no reason to really buy an Xbox One. But, and that's, like I keep saying, that's what it all comes down to, is if the games are fun and playable. And as far as the modern console war, it's dumb. Every frickin' thing that's made on both the PS5 and the Xbox is, like, identical. There's slight graphical differences, but I've said it in one of my last videos about the modern console war and fanboyism. No, it's nothing like the 90s console war where there were significant differences on the Super Sega or Super Nintendo. Super Sega! Can we get a Super Sega, please? But the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis, you know, the games were drastically different, like Alien 3 and Terminator 2, the arcade game. But this has gone on long enough. It's well over 30 minutes. So those are just my thoughts. Don't compare Microsoft to Sega, dude. Microsoft's not doing arcade games. They're not doing anything like Virtua Fighter or anything like Hang On. God, I miss Road Rash so much. Even a new Hang On or Outrun would be so cool. They did have Outrun on the original Xbox, but it was still a Sega game. Microsoft didn't do it. So, yeah, I mean, if you like Xbox, hey, awesome. But don't compare the company to something completely different. It's like comparing Walmart to GameStop. Or, yeah, I think that's a better one. Walmart to Safeway / SafeMart. You know, it's like you're comparing two different things that prioritize different things. And we're all entitled to our own opinions and our own likes and dislikes and etc., etc. So buy the system that you want, play the games that you like, you enjoy. So anyway, that's my thoughts. Don't compare Microsoft to Sega. And until I see you guys in the next show, just remember, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And just remember, stay cool.